Hi, I'm Chef Brian.
And I'm Chef Dan from the Purple Iris. Today we're going to make one of our most popular restaurant desserts. As well, you can come in and try it. You'll have a lot of fun making it at home. And I'm going to hand it over to Brian. What we're going to do is do this segment together. Brian's going to kind of talk it through, and I'm going to show you the process and the technique, and we're going to chime off each other back and forth and turn out a wonderful dessert.
Today's dessert we're going to make for you is the Cherries Jubilee. This recipe is a very simple recipe that you can manipulate any way to your taste. We're going to start out with the brownie mix here, and you can use any brownie mix that you prefer. Next, our chocolate, which is the same as the brownie mix. Any chocolate you can use. Pistols, dark milk, white chocolate, anything that you prefer.
You can also blend them.
Dan is now chunking the chocolate to make it easier to mix into the brownie mixture. Next, we're going to add our pecan halves. Also, you can use walnuts, toasted almonds, any kind of nut, peanuts.
Yeah, and dried fruits are really nice in there as well too. One thing I wanted to comment on this recipe is it is good to work in a cool environment. Try to keep your chocolate as cool as possible, and as well as once we get to the ice cream, we're going to pre-chill bowls, pre-chill our equipment, try to keep everything as cool as possible. That way we can get a lot of height out of this dessert. Just want to make that comment. The chocolate that we use also is a fine French couverture. It's a true chocolate. Does not need to be tempered before putting in the brownie recipe. The other thing you can do is you can make the chunks or morsels, if you use morsels any size that you like. So if you're a chocoholic and you want big chunks of chocolate in there, that will work as well. You can also play with thicknesses, donenesses, mix morsels together. You can add peanut butter morsels to there. Again, it's just flexible. Any way you want to take this recipe, it can go. So we're going to basically show you our base recipe and then go from there.
Well, that's enough stiffness about the brownie. I personally like to play with the ice cream, different flavors, and we'll get into that a little bit later.
Stiffness? I don't know what he means about stiffness, but all that hot air is going to melt that ice cream he's talking about. But there is one more comment before we let Brian have the camera. I wanted to talk about liqueurs as well. You can add Godiva liqueur to this for a chocolate flavor. You can use Courvoisier, Grand Marnier. Another nice one for what we're doing is a Kirsch, which is a nice cherry brandy. Really sets the flavor off. Just again, have fun with it, be creative, and enjoy it.
And the brownie mix that we're using doesn't recall egg. I like to add egg to our brownie mix to give it a more cake-like texture. If your brownie mix you're using at home already has it, you don't have to worry about this. So Dan's cracking one egg in there and going to whisk it into the wet mix. He's also going to mix the mixture by hand. When you're doing it by hand, you want to make a little well or a little hole in the bottom of the bowl. Add in all your wet mix, and now he's going to mix it by hand. Now he's going to gently fold the mixture by hand.
As I'm folding this by hand, as you notice, I'm not completely incorporating this mix. You will see some little lumps of your cocoa mix in there. What you want to do is let this brownie mix sit for about 5 minutes somewhere. It'll all hydrate in, be completely mixed. What you don't want to do is over mix this. What it'll do is it'll create more of a chewy brownie, more of a gooey brownie. With the egg in there, we just lightly folded that in so that when it bakes, it's going to fluff up and give you that real soft cake presentation, which this being a frozen dessert is what you want. If you were to use a real chewy type brownie, it'll really harden up under frozen temperatures. So the cake brownie really makes a big difference, but not that the chewy one would be wrong. You can try it, it's just as good. The cake is just more preference, easier to eat, easier to serve, easier to cut out of the pan, so on and so forth. Not so messy to put together.
From here we're going to go into our greased baking pan. So here we're going to spread it out with a spatula to make it nice and even, no hot spots, to ensure that the brownie rises in uniform.
One of the other reasons we want to keep this nice and level and consistent all the way across the pan, especially once you put it in the oven, to make sure that one side of the pan is not leaning or the other, because it really affects our final product. What we're doing is we're building little brownie towers with ice cream in the center, and they're going to be tall and straight, and if you have uneven brownie, your cylinder, your plate presentation is going to be lopsided and leaning. It won't look as nice. Doesn't hurt also to give it a drop, level it out, let it pack in there, make sure there's no air pockets in the pan, and then into your oven. Okay, now we take the brownies out of the oven. We've let them cool for about 45 minutes to an hour at room temperature, and then we put them in our refrigerator and let them sit overnight to chill. You don't want to freeze them at that point, but it makes them really difficult to cut. But you do want them as cold as possible. That way when you cut into them, they retain their shape really well.
So from here, we're going to score the edges of the brownies and then knock it out onto a cutting board to cut rings out of.
And we're not really digging down into the pan hard. We're just releasing it from the sides, not to ruin the tip of our knife.
Just flip the brownie pan, knock the brownie out of the pan. Take off the parchment paper.
That we didn't show you.
That we didn't show you.
This is our little secret. We're ruined now.
So from here, we're going to punch out the tops and the bottoms of our towers. You can use any shape or size. Just to give you an idea, the tower's going to look like this with the ice cream in between. Now from this point, we're going to talk about our ice cream.
Dude, what's up? There's more holes than there are brownies.
Enough of that nonsense. We're going to talk about our ice cream.
What we're going to do now is we're going to put together the ice cream part of our brownie towers. Cherry's Jubilee is the name of our dessert, just to use the technical words. What we have is Brian's going to mix some ice cream, and I'm going to talk about that for a little bit. And he's also going to incorporate these cherries, and these are what, the sour pitted cherries?
Sour pitted cherries, yeah.
And what he's done is he's sugared these a little bit to offset the tartness a little bit, and then let them macerate after he chopped them. Maceration, very simply, is to take usually a fruit item. Basically what you're doing is making sort of a compote type deal. Sugar being hygroscopic, it's going to pour water out of an item. So what it's going to do is it's actually going to adhere to these cherries, start to pull the water out, and it's going to turn this cherry into sort of a cherry syrup. It's going to make its own syrup by the end, and that's what the maceration is for.
Both of these bowls sat in the freezer for over an hour to work with ice cream.
And it doesn't hurt to leave them in overnight. As you can see, it's so important that we waited till the end to tell you.
So now we're going to mix this.
One thing, going back while Brian's mixing this, we've experimented with a lot of different ice creams. If you can make your own homemade ice cream, add the cherries to it, that's great. What we do is we try to use a high quality, a high fat content, heavy cream content ice cream. And one of the reasons that we do that is when you refreeze this, because we've softened it, added cherries, added sugar, there's some juice to that. When you refreeze it, it has less tendency to crystallize. The ice crystals won't form, and it won't be as much of an ice milk type dessert as it will be a nice creamy ice cream.
The recipe that we've shown you here is the recipe that we use in the restaurant. You can also use any type of ice cream, chocolate, any flavorings, Snickers pieces, Reese's.
Clean out the cupboard.
Yeah, clean out the cupboard. Reese's peanut butter cups, anything. So from here, we're going to go back into the freezer to let this set up before we make our towers. Now onto the assembly of our Cherry's Jubilee. We got a ring that we've done the same thing with the bowls. We've let it sit in the freezer for about an hour. With the for the bottom of the tower, the brownie that we punched out earlier, you're going to take that and place it on the plate. Set the ring mold right down on the brownie. Now here's where you're going to spoon in the cherry flavored ice cream.
Okay, and this ice cream has been sitting in the freezer for about an hour. What you want to do is you want to get it to, keep it at a pliable stage, but yet you don't want it to be melting. You don't want to see any liquid in the pan. If that's the case, go ahead and pop it back in the freezer for 10 or 15 minutes and come back to it. Wrap the ice cream airtight, freeze that, and you can assemble them the day you need them. That way, if you have a small freezer space or afraid that they're going to get damaged or squashed in any way, then you can make them to order. We've only filled the ice cream to about 1 inch down from the surface. That's about the thickness of our brownie. That way it makes a nice even cap in our mold.
So we're going to take the other brownie that we punched out, place it in top, and just gently, as you're pushing down just gently on the brownie, you're lifting the ring at the same time so that it creates the tower. On with the chocolate ganache, just spoon it over. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. A little bit of garnish with some strawberry. Do a strawberry fan. Confectionery sugar. And that's our Cherry's Jubilee.
One other thing I wanted to show you, if you don't have the fancy stainless steel ring molds like we have here at the restaurant, one thing you can do, and another point I wanted to make as we do this, when we do this, we are assembling this with the baked top of the brownie up. The bottom one is not as important. The top one, I think it gives you a nicer presentation. When you're pushing out, a lot of times you'll have air pockets and holes and things like that on the pan side of the brownie, whereas the top looks like you kind of baked it with the ice cream in there. But what we're going to do is we're going to do one sort of home style, and I'm going to show you a little trick that you can do without the ring mold. You want to take one clean square of plastic wrap, and enough to wrap the whole brownie tower dessert. Place the bottom about center. You want to take the ice cream, pack it in there till it's about a ½ inch high, and it doesn't have to go from end to end. We're actually going to shape it in the plastic wrap. You then take your top again with the baked side up, sandwich it on top, and as you're wrapping it, you're not smashing it, you're actually shaping it. And you're going to pull up. You don't want to push down. You're going to pull up on all 4 sides, and then you can take your hand, you can mold them in there. And as you see, you got a little beggar's purse with a brownie ice cream. Once it sets up in the freezer, about an hour or 2, you can unwrap it, and you have the same type of dessert. Well, we just want to thank you from the Purple Iris for spending the day with us in our kitchen and enjoying watching us making this. That's horrible. Yeah.
Until next time, I'm Chef Brian, and I'm Chef Dan. Thanks for joining us.
How could you be both people?
I'm saying, obviously.
Well, that was fun. Did you have a good time? Did something big.
I hope you enjoyed cooking with Julie and Jacques. Until next time. Well, thanks for joining us today.
We hope you have fun with this dessert and come up with all kinds of creative new ideas. Thanks again, I'm Chef Dan.
Yeah, that's easy enough.
Thanks again, I'm Chef Dan.
Thanks again. Thanks for joining us today.
I hope you have fun with this recipe and explore new ideas, try to put some new ideas together and impress your guests.
Until next time, I'm Chef Brian.
And I'm Chef Dan.